Hey guys, it's Julian, and today I'm super excited to be showing you how to make techno like SNTS. As usual, you can get the project file and samples and MIDI and presets, all of that kind of stuff in this video in the description, and if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. And yeah, let's dive in. The first sound we have here, this is the loop you heard in the intro, we're at 126 BPM, and the first sound we have here is the kick, which sounds like this. This is a pretty straightforward rumble kick. There's just a few secrets to really get it to sound like this style. You know, if you just try to make any old rumble kick like the ones from a lot of my other videos, it's not going to quite work, and I'll explain why as we're going through here. So, the first thing here is the type of sample you choose. With this style, you want this more like kind of like it has a very mid-rangey attack to it. You can see I even boosted this a little bit with this EQ here. But yeah, this is what you want, like this more sort of like old school kind of kick, I guess you could call it. And it's gonna punch through really hard and have that like nice, really hard hitting attack in the mid-range and in the high end a little bit. So that's the first thing. After that, I've just got a bit of EQ, like I said. This is just boosting that mid-range even more and the high mid-range with this one. And then I've got a little bit of a low mid-range cut there to get rid of a little bit of mud. After that, I have a bit of saturation, just to fatten the kick up a little bit going into the rumble, just makes it hit a little bit harder, makes it punch through the mix a little bit more. And then the next thing we have here is the rumble rack. So you can see, it's a standard rumble like you see in a lot of my videos. I've got a dry chain, and then we have the rumble chain. And so with this type of kick, it's all in the delay that you use for the rumble. You don't really want to use a reverb for this. You can. I have heard it in a few of SNTS's songs. But for the most part, to get this like kind of rhythm, you need to use a delay. And the secret here is using a dotted eighth note rhythm. That's what this 3 is in the delay here. It's a dotted eighth note. And what you get with this is you can hear, it gives you these much more pronounced in between all the kicks. Versus like if I just switch this to 16th notes, you get that a little bit, but it's just not as pronounced. This is how you get it to really hit hard and like still get those punching through the whole mix. You even with everything playing, you hear the that like galloping delay. And that's the secret, is to do that. After that, I've got a bit of an amp to distort it. Basically, this is the way it works, is you get, to make the rumble, you get like a delay, and then put it through an amp. You can hear putting it through that makes the high end a bit crispy, but also makes the slow end a lot fatter and more rumbly. And then we're just low passing it to get just that. And then you blend it in with the punch, and there you go. And then the only extra stuff on here is I've just got a bit of an EQ8, just cutting out a bit of room for the punch at 100 hertz around there, and then boosting the low end a little bit. And then I just have a compressor side chaining it to the dry kick, so it's not just taking over the whole thing. And yeah, that is it for the rumble. Like I said, the main thing with this one to keep in mind is just don't go too crazy with the distortion. You can see I actually have it on the clean setting, and then that dotted eighth note delay is going to give you the galloping kind of like you want for the style. After that, I just have a bit of drum bass. You can see this is set pretty high. This makes it really like glue everything together. That's the other thing. If you really want the rumble to be as loud as the kick like we're talking about here, this is what you need to do, is just really glue them together with some saturation like this. And then the last thing on there is this EQ8, just boosting the low end, cutting the low mid-range, kind of like cleaning the kick up a little. Here's without that. And then with it. So you can see how this is like that final little bit of glue to kind of tie everything together. And yeah, that is it for the kick. The next thing that we have here is this operator hi-hat, which sounds like this. This is a pretty standard operator hi-hat. You can see we just got some white noise going through a bandpass filter on the 12 dB per octave of attenuation setting. So yeah, really simple. Just making some white noise and kind of shortening it with the envelope. And then when you filter it, that's how you get the hi-hat sound. I really like making the hi-hats in this style. People were saying sometimes like you should use samples and stuff for techno. And that's true, but I definitely say there's a lot of value in just being able to go in and make your own hi-hat like this. And just like, kind of make exactly what you want. With the bandpass filter, you can get so many different styles of hi-hats. You can make almost anything, so it really gives you a versatile thing to play around with to make your own hi-hats here. And then the only effect on there is just a bit of drum bus. The drum bus is a really good way with these operator percussions to make them sound less like a synth and more like an actual percussion. Yeah, that is it for that hi-hat. The next thing we have here is the ride, which sounds like this. This one's really simple, just like the standard sort of ride you hear in a lot of techno tracks. I've got a bit of a high-pass filter on it to cut out that stuff. And then I have it pitched down a little bit. You know, really simple stuff, just playing on the upbeats. After that, we have this hi-hat, which sounds like this. So this is just a sample playing on the 16th notes. You know, you can hear this gives it some nice, like, kind of brightness. So yeah, this is the type of hi-hat you want to choose, just something bright like this, because we have a lot of mid-range stuff in the mix, so these hi-hats need to be, I won't say like the brightest, like you definitely want to make sure they're not too bright, that can be a problem, but if you get something like this, that's just very much on the high end, you can hear how it's going to sit on top of the whole mix like that. And yeah, and then the last hi-hat we have here is this one, which is made using operator. So it's just kind of adding a bit of vibe, a little bit more movement in the track. What this is just some white noise going into a bandpass filter, just like that other one. And then I have an LFO on the filter, just kind of moving it around. So that's how you get that different texture to it. And then I have an echo on there as well, doing down and eighth notes. Just kind of gives it a bit more space. This is more, like I said, of like a vibe and kind of like character layer. If I turn this off, you can hear the hi-hats are just very like... It just reminds me a lot more of like a more like big room techno style versus when you turn this on. You know, it gives it kind of something cool that's like shifting and changing throughout the track to keep it exciting. The only effects that I have on the group here of the hi-hats are just a bit of saturation just to kind of beef everything up and make it all sound like one. And then we have a bit of a high-pass filter as well with this EQ8. So this is just cutting out the low end. You know, make sure there's no nasty low end in there. And yeah, that is it for the hi-hats. The next thing that we have here is the sequenced percussion thing, which sounds like this. So this is just like this weird kind of like dissonant thing that I sequence in here. Like this. What this is actually, is it just some white noise? And then it's going into a bandpass filter. The bandpass filter has a bit of an envelope on it. And then I have an LFO slowly moving the cutoff on the filter, like that, and then I have it going into a resonator here. And so the resonator is on the B setting, it's a bit more like metallic this way, and then what I have here is I have this tuned to G, that is the key of the track, and then you can see I've got these kind of like dissonant tones in here, because we have a fifth there, which actually shouldn't be dissonant, but then we also have this note, which is 13 notes up, so technically just one note up from the root, and then one which is just that +1. So that's how you get that kind of like nasty, weird, dissonant sound like I was saying. If I put those two just right on the G, it's not quite as weird sounding. But yeah, so a pretty simple sound, but you can see the technique behind that. And then I just have a bit of echo on it just to give it some more space. And then we have this drum bus, and the drum bus is hitting really hard. You can see I've got it up very high. So there's without it. You can hear it. It's a very thin sound without it. It doesn't really like have that power to it. When we add this, it gives it like that really strong percussion kind of feel to where it can stand on its own in the mix and it's not going to be too thin. And yeah, the next sound that we have here is this first pad, which sounds like this. So this one's really simple. All this is just some FM stuff here with operator. You can see I've got 3 sine waves here. I've got them detuned a little bit. I've got the second one an octave up. And those are just going into a low pass filter that's slowly moving with this LFO here. I've also got the LFO on the volume of oscillator B and a little bit on the pitch of oscillator A as well. So this is how you get that kind of like weird stuff. This is really the key to these kinds of sounds. If you're having a hard time making your pads sound really like different and weird and warped like this, try adding some pitch automations and some pitch modulations and stuff like that. Like the modulation is really where you make a sound like this sound so out there and industrial like this. And for the notes on this one, you can see it's just playing D and G, so actually just G and then the fifth of G. but then we've got the G up an octave. And yeah, and then for effects on here, I've just got a bit of chorus, kind of spreads it out a little bit. I've also got this echo. This is really slow. It's doing dotted half notes, and I've got it on the ping pong setting. Really what this is doing is with a sound like this, you're not really hearing the delay so much. It's just kind of like making this long wash of sound that's then going into the reverb here. And like you can hear the delays a little bit because you have the filter sweep at different places, so that's kind of cool. You get like the cascading effect of that. But yeah, and then the last thing on there is just a bit of reverb, and that is it for that first pad sound. The next sound we have here is the second pad, which sounds like this. So this one's really simple. It's just playing G and then G sharp, just kind of getting some dark, kind of evil sounding stuff there. What we've got going on for the sound on this one is I made it using analog, and you can see we just have two saw waves going into a low pass. The low pass has a bit of an LFO on it, just kind of slowly moving it like that. Again, the modulation is everything. And yeah, and then we just have a bit of chorus to spread the sound out a little bit. I've got an echo doing dotted eighth notes, and it's on the ping pong setting, and then that's just going into a reverb. So very similar to what I had on that last one, where it's like the delay isn't so much to get a really obvious delay, because this isn't a sound where you're really going to be able to hear it, but it's just to kind of create more repeats going into the reverb. After that, the last pad inside of this group we have is this one, which sounds like this. So you can hear this pad is just adding some like low end, not even like low end, but I guess you could say like mid range. Here's the group without it. And then with it. So you can hear what that adds. It just kind of like gives the sound a little bit of body. With this one, it is made very similar to the first one. You can see we just got 3 sine waves here doing some FM. I've got the second one detuned a little bit. The first one is down an octave, and the third one is up an octave. And then those are going into a low pass filter. The low pass is being modulated slowly by this LFO, and then I've also got the LFO on the volume of oscillator B. After that, we've just got a bit of chorus, spread it out a bit, going into an echo, and then once again the echo is going into a reverb, just creating this long wash of sound. And yeah, and then I have all 3 of those pads I just showed you in a group to kind of make it all sound like one pad. This is really the key to the sound. It's very dense and it's very full. I like to think of this as kind of like ambient industrial techno, where it's like industrial techno is all about just having like a very full-bodied sound and kind of like filling up the spectrum. That's what you're trying to do here, but just with more like ambient sounds. So what we got going on here first is this low-pass filter. This is just slowly moving. You can see I've got it set there, and then we have an LFO on there just kind of like moving it around. Again, you really just want as much modulation as possible with the style. That is how, when you hear these tracks that are just so repetitive and like pretty much just one chord for 7 minutes, this is how they're doing it, is the modulation. It's like little subtle things like this that tell your brain that this isn't just the same loop over and over. It's the same loop, but there's more nuance to it and more exciting stuff to make it kind of come to life. After that, I've got a bit of reverb to just give everything some space. Then we have a bit of drum bass. This fattens everything up, glues it together a little bit, makes it a bit warmer as well and less like harsh and digital. And then the last thing we have on here is just an EQ8 cutting out the low end. And yeah, that is it for that first group of pads. The next sound we have here is the second pad, which sounds like this. So this one is more of like a dark industrial sound. You can see why I put this one on its own. This is really adding that like, big atmosphere, kind of like metallic sounding thing. What this is it's just playing G. You can see, really simple, just droning on that same note. And then we have this FM sound that I made using operators. So what this is it's 4 sine waves, and I've got them at different octaves, detuned a little bit as well. And then those are going into a low-pass filter, and then we have an LFO, just like with the other ones, moving the filter cutoff. And then I've also got this one moving the pitch of oscillator B. Like I said, really great way to get some cool kind of morphing sounds like this. And then it's also moving the volume of oscillator B. So we're getting just a lot of modulation, a lot of movement with this sound. After that, I have this bandpass filter, which is set like this. You can see it's on the 12 dB per octave of attenuation setting. And then I've got an LFO just moving that one around over the course of the track. So again, just movement upon movement upon movement. After that, I've got a bit of chorus to spread the sound out a bit. This also kind of helps with that more like metallic sound like I was talking about. Then we have some echo on dotted eighth notes on the ping pong setting, going into a reverb. These two things are giving it the space. and really washing the sound out. And then the last thing we have on there is just a bit of drum bus to fatten it up. Not a whole lot, but you can hear what it adds to the sound. It gives it that last little bit of like oomph that it needs. And then the last thing on there is just a high pass filter cutting out the low end. And that is it for the second pad. The next sound that we have here is this sort of like croaking sound, as I call it. Here's what it sounds like. So this is something I've heard in quite a few SNTS tracks. Essentially, it's like just having something like this kind of in the background that's like very much like an ambient, just kind of like quiet sound. But again, it's the little things like this that add a lot of nuance and detail that make a really, really repetitive track like this work. So, like, you can hear it in the mix. Sounds a little underneath everything. I feel like it sounds pretty cool. So you can see this is just playing G. It's really simple. Just one note and then G down here. Just kind of get these little like rhythmic movements here. And then for the sound on this one, it's actually really simple. All it is it's just a saw wave with a little bit of FM from a sine wave, which you can see is detuned a lot inside of operator here. And then I've got this going into a bandpass filter. And then the secret to this sound is it's like when you play a saw wave really low, you're obviously like up here. You can hear the notes, but when you play it really low, you hear that. It's like slowly. You hear the individual phases of the saw wave essentially. That's what this is. That's how we get this sound. And then the bandpass filter just kind of accentuates that a bit. And yeah, and then I've got that being modulated with an LFO, just slowly moving it. And then that is it for inside the synth. After that, we just have a bit of echo doing quarter notes just to give it a bit of space so it kind of rings out. And then we have some drum bus to fatten the sound up and really make it sound full. And then the last thing on here is just a high pass filter cutting out the low end. And that is it for the croak. And then the last layer that we have going on here is just this industrial noise, which sounds like this. So what this is a bit of noise. And then kind of like some industrial, like ambient noise, kind of sounds like it might be like in a factory or something like that. And then I've got it going through some effects. So the first thing we have here is a bit of an auto filter here. You can see it's on the bandpass setting. And then I have an LFO very slowly moving that. So you can hear how that's just kind of like making it so it's kind of changing and morphing and evolving over the course of the track. After that, I have an amp on here, so this just blows it out even more. Here's without it. And then with it, I also like how it's making it mono. It sounds more industrial and dark to me. And then the last thing we have on there is a bit of drum bus, just to fatten it up, because this really isn't going to fit into the track unless you do something to fatten it up. You need to treat this like an instrument. It's like when you have a lead, you don't just want to put the lead in the background and forget about it. You try to make it so it's like right up front there with everything else. I think that is the idea with this sound. You can hear it in there. And really what this song comes down to is kind of like, as you can hear with everything, is really about just creating this big wash of sound. It's like very much wall of sound style production. So we're just creating a ton of different things that aren't going to be too much together, but just fit together to create this big brooding, dark, ambient track. So that's going to be it for this one, guys. I hope you enjoyed. As always, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. And let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Like I said in the beginning, you can get the project file and samples and MIDI and presets, all of that stuff from this video in the description. And if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it's already available. Thank you so much, guys, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.